Welcome to the Workers' Reading Room. Today I'll be reading American Trade Unionism by William Z. Foster. This is Chapter 29, The Communists and the Trade Unions, and this chapter is done in a question and answer format. Question: what part do communists play in the trade unions? What is meant by communist trade union work? Answer: workers organize into trade unions primarily in order to win higher wages, shorter hours, and better working conditions. The Communist Party, as the political party of the working class, always supports the trade unions in their struggles. The Communist Party insists that its members join the unions of their respective industries or trades, that they be the most active fighters for the interests of the workers, that they give their untiring efforts to building and strengthening the unions, that they always protect the unity of the trade unions. The Communist Party educates and organizes the trade union workers into a broad democratic front, with the farmers and other toilers in support of their common cause. But the communists also look beyond these daily struggles. We believe that a fundamental reorganization of society, socialism, is the only final solution of the workers' problems, unemployment, poverty, and war. Not all members of the trade unions accept this socialist viewpoint of the Communist Party, which is based on a scientific analysis of capitalism and on the experience of the workers' struggles the world over. Because of their broad outlook, the communists are able in every immediate struggle to champion most effectively the interests of the workers. Due to their Marxist-Leninist training, communists are practical organizers of the workers, know how to estimate the forces of the enemy, and understand what tactics to apply in order to achieve the aims for which all workers are ready to fight at a given time. We communists naturally consider it our right to advocate our opinions and win to our viewpoint the workers in the unions. This viewpoint strengthens the fight of the workers today and prepares them for understanding the need for socialism, which can only be brought into existence when the majority of the workers become convinced of its necessity through their own experience. Question: is it a fact, as it is often charged, that the communists in the trade unions always set out to capture these organizations? Answer: this is one of the many false accusations made against the Communist Party by the enemies of a militant and powerful labor movement. The reality is that the communists join with all other progressives in fighting against the unions being captured by any individuals or groups. We believe in democratic unions, organizations in which the membership determines policy, and we work for a broad leadership thoroughly representative of and responsive to the wishes of the rank and file. Communists fight against all clique control and dictatorial tendencies among union leaders, no matter from what direction it comes. As for ourselves, we ask no rights beyond those accorded all other workers. We accept the same responsibilities and duties that non-communists do. Communists expect to influence the policies of a labor organization and play a role in its leadership only to the extent that they win the respect and support of the workers. We strive to merit this support by our devoted activities and educational work in the unions, not by acting as an organized group within them. Communists, whether rank and filers or elected officials of a union, have the duty and responsibility to build and improve the organization, work for the realization of its program, and to abide by the decision of the majority, arrived at democratically through the channels of the union. Communists who are elected into leadership of a union are responsible to the membership of that organization, and the Communist Party joins with all workers in calling to account any elected officials, communist or otherwise, who fails to fulfill the responsibilities and duties entrusted to them by the membership of their trade unions. Question: do communists form factions, organized party groups, within the trade unions? Answer: no. In the earlier years of the Communist Party, the policy was sometimes followed of the Communist Party members in a given union meeting together to plan educational work in that organization. But this practice has been discontinued, as tending to create possible misunderstandings among the rank and file of the unions. The communists, like all other members, function through the regular democratic procedures and committees of the unions. We are resolute opponents of factional control of unions, whether by a conservative bureaucratic clique or by some special political group. The communists have full reliance that the union membership at large, if given an opportunity for a free discussion of the issues before it and the right to decisive democratic action upon them, will arrive at sound policies. For this reason, communists are everywhere and always the most consistent and determined fighters for trade union democracy. Question: what is the attitude of the communists toward unauthorized strikes and toward trade union discipline generally? Answer: communists believe in trade union discipline based on majority rule arrived at through the democratic processes of the union. Unless there is such discipline, the union will be destroyed. Communists are opposed to unauthorized strikes provoked by minorities. Such strikes almost always serve the interest of the employers, not the workers. They commonly result in violent internal conflict within the union. They antagonize middle-class sympathizers, and they usually end in defeat. Where a union follows policy really in the interest of the workers and defends actively their grievances, and where trade union democracy prevails, there is no occasion for unauthorized strikes. Question: is it true that communists consider trade union agreements mere scraps of paper to be violated at will? Answer: it is not true. Communists understand that in modern industry, with all its intricacies, it is necessary for employers and trade unions to put down on paper the complex terms of the workers' employment that they may agree upon. Such agreements, when entered into, should be adhered to by both sides. But communists do not believe in the illusions of conservative trade unionists that trade union agreements bring about a suspension of the class struggle. The ever-present contest between employers and workers over the product of labor merely takes on new forms under such conditions, with the employers using every trick to violate and chisel upon the agreements. Communists, therefore, are alert to see to it that the employers are compelled to live up to their agreements and that the agreements are interpreted in the interest of the workers. In general, communists support short-term contracts, not to exceed 2 years or so. Under no circumstances do communists consider trade union agreements as justifying one body of workers breaking the strike of another, such as has been done upon innumerable occasions in trade union history by conservative officials using the excuse of inviolable union contracts. Question: what is the communist policy on the arbitration of labor disputes? Answer: communists strongly favor direct dealings between unions and employers in the adjustment of labor disputes, as employers with their influence have an unsavory record of winning to their side the odd man on arbitration boards. But we are not opposed on principle to the workers accepting arbitration, taking great care of the board's composition when direct negotiations fail and when a strike is inadvisable. The workers' objective being the attainment of the maximum in living standards, wages, hours, working conditions, etc., the communists are willing to use not only direct negotiation, but also arbitration when other means do not get results. We are strongly opposed, however, to compulsory arbitration in whatever form it may take. Under compulsory arbitration, the strike right is taken away from the workers, and this places them at the mercy of the employers and their representatives. Question: what about seniority in industry? Do seniority clauses in union agreements constitute a good or bad practice? Answer: the communists endorse seniority provisions in trade union contracts as necessary in order to protect the older workers, and also to prevent the arbitrary discharge of militant workers for union activities. Seniority in industry takes on especially great importance now that there is huge, chronic mass unemployment. But while utilizing seniority practices, the unions should also be on guard against serious abuses growing out of them. Thus, on the railroads, because of seniority claims, some workers work the equivalent of 30 or even 40 days per month, while others get no work at all. And more serious yet, seniority practices sometimes operate to exclude the younger workers almost entirely from a given industry. This is both unjust and dangerous. The youth have the right to work and to establish a family, and if this right is denied them, many may easily become the prey of reactionary demagogues and be used against the labor movement. In working out seniority systems, therefore, ways must be found to check possible abuses and to protect the place of the youth in industry. Seniority rules must not be used to discriminate against the employment of Negroes. Question: what is the communist policy on apprentices in industry? Answer: The communists are in favor of young workers being drawn freely into industry, including the skilled trades which require prolonged training. But we oppose the present policies of employers who use the apprentice system to weaken and undermine the unions. We advocate trade schools controlled by the trade unions. We also favor the unions controlling the drawing in and training of youth jointly with committees of the youth themselves. The young workers should be admitted to membership in the unions upon the beginning of their apprenticeship. Communists demand payment of fixed wages on the basis of equal pay for equal work, for the type of work that the apprentice performs. We oppose all tendencies toward job trust unionism through undue restriction of apprentices, excessive initiation fees, etc. Question: what is the communist attitude toward sick and death benefits and other fraternal features in trade unions? Answer: the communists favor the adoption by unions of sick and death benefits and other benevolent provisions. They tend to stabilize the unions. But it is important that such undertakings be so organized and administered that the funds are properly protected, that the workers exercise full control, and that they get the maximum service at a minimum cost. Often it is advisable for a union to operate through an existing, well-recognized workers' fraternal organization, such as, for example, the International Workers' Order. Care should be taken that union benefit funds are not used for ventures into labor banking or real estate speculation. The insurance service should be optional, so that the workers who cannot afford it shall not be deprived of full union membership. Unions cannot meet this whole problem by themselves, however, and should, therefore, actively support old age, unemployment, sickness, accident, and other forms of social insurance by the federal and state governments. Question: I often hear it said, communists always bring politics into the unions. What's the answer? Answer: politics is concentrated economics, said Lenin. Politics is always present in the trade union, but not always working class politics. Frequently, as we all know, conservative trade union leaders misuse the unions in the political interests of themselves and the bosses. Communists give a working class character to trade union politics. The nature of the struggle of the workers under the present conditions of capitalist development makes political action more and more necessary. The unions are concerned with wages, hours, and working conditions. These questions have all become political issues. Just to recall the wages and hours laws or the Wagner Act makes this clear. Or take unemployment relief and insurance. These are also vital political matters. Likewise, the workers are interested in the preservation of peace. This too is political. So is the fight against lynching, injunctions in labor disputes, use of police against workers, as well as the election of the city, state, and national legislative bodies. All these are political issues of basic importance to labor, and all trade unions, including the AFL Executive Council, and not only the CIO, are compelled to deal with them regularly. Even the old, outworn AFL policy of reward your friends and punish your enemies, though harmful politics, is politics nevertheless. The communists put trade union politics on a working class basis and advocate the organization of the workers solidly, politically, and in a broad democratic front with the farmers and professionals, thereby enabling them to defend themselves effectively on every field of the class struggle. Question: can craft unions exist as part of a general progressive labor movement? Answer: yes. In many countries, craft and industrial unions are to be found side by side, working peacefully and constructively in the same national trade union federation. While unquestionably the industrial form of unionism is the superior type, still in a number of industries in this country, especially railroads, building trades, printing trades, and amusement trades, experience teaches us that craft unions can exist and defend the interests of their members. These craft unions develop a measure of the necessary industrial solidarity through various types of federation, railroad employees department, building trades councils. But, on the other hand, in such industries as coal, chemical, steel, auto, textile, metal mining, electrical manufacturing, and generally where modern methods of mass production are in operation, the industrial form of unionism is necessary. There is no valid reason whatever why craft and industrial unions, each confining itself to its proper sphere, cannot live harmoniously together in one national federation. Question: Why do communists so insistently demand the admission of Negroes into trade unions? Answer: first, because refusal to grant trade union membership to Negroes is a gross insult and serious injury to them by tending to bar them from working in various industries and by depriving them of all organized protection in their wage, hour, seniority, promotion, and working conditions. Free admission of Negroes into all trade unions, with full right to hold union office and to enjoy all union privileges, as is becoming the case with many unions, will go far towards smashing the whole shameful Jim Crow system. Second, because close working relations between Negro and white toilers is fundamentally necessary for the development of the Democratic Front, of all progressive forces, and the achievement of its demands, for the defense of American democracy against its reactionary foes. The question is, therefore, one of basic political significance. Karl Marx truly said, "Labor with a white skin cannot be free while labor with a black skin is branded." The degree of political understanding and power of the labor and progressive movement can be pretty accurately gauged by the extent to which it extends the hand of brotherly cooperation to the doubly oppressed Negro people. Question: what is there to the common contention of reactionaries that high wages are the cause of economic crises? Answer: nothing. It is a false argument used by spokesmen for Wall Street as an excuse for cutting wages and maintaining and increasing profits. Contrary to it, one of the main reasons for the economic slump of 1937 was precisely that the real wages of the workers, what they can actually purchase with their pay, did not keep up with the rise in the cost of living. Higher wages have a lessening effect upon the crisis by increasing the purchasing power of the masses and enabling them to buy back a larger portion of what they have produced. The industrialists deliberately mislead the workers when they claim that higher wages cause curtailment of production and the shutting down of factories. The big trusts increased the prices of their products far more than the small raises they were forced to give the workers. The Steel Trust, for example, after giving a small raise to its workers in 1937, boosted the price of steel by a margin 10 times as much as the wage increase. Not high wages, but exorbitant monopoly prices were one of the main factors which brought on the crisis. High wages expand the market for commodities and make for industrial activity. Low wages and high monopoly prices sharply reduced consumer demand and make for the economic crises. Question: how do communists raise the demand for their right to work? Answer: the communists support the demand of organized labor for the right to work. Practically, this involves the government taking responsibility when private industry cannot or refuses to provide jobs, to guarantee adequate relief and jobs for workers. This is why the communists propose that, for instance, the government should launch a huge program of socially needed public works, which will give employment to all able-bodied workers at trade union wages and working conditions, and will wipe out such public sore spots as slums and substandard living conditions in the rural areas. This is why the communists further propose the immediate enactment of federal legislation providing for a 5-day week, 6-hour day in all industries, and the establishment of a minimum annual wage guaranteeing an American standard of living. Similarly, the communists call for suitable amendments to the Social Security Act, which will create a unified national system of social insurance covering such hazards as unemployment, old age, maternity, and sickness. Question: what is the communist stand regarding employers share the work policies? Answer: the Communist Party is opposed to employers share the work plans, which in reality means sharing the misery among the workers. Adequate relief in public works jobs should be furnished by the unemployed. However, in certain seasonal industries, like the needle trades, the trade unions have developed a method called equal division of work, a plan for sharing all available work during the slow seasons. This is an important demand and is supported by the communists, because the peculiarities of these industries make equalization of work a practical necessity. Likewise, in the maritime industry, the communists support the proposals of the unions of the seamen and longshoremen for establishing a rotation system of employment under the supervision and control of the unions themselves. 1939. That is the end of Chapter 29 of American Trade Unionism. Thank you for listening to the Workers' Reading Room. Have a good night.